This is the first year that I participated in Inktober. For me, Inktober wasn't a challenge about drawing every day because I do that, but it was a challenge to stick to one medium. However, I early decided to do a thing about just that. So I wrote down in my very big sketchbook every tool that I had that could be counted as ink. So you can see here I have brushes and dip pens, and that is the Pentel pocket brush pen. And here is a technical pen. It is from Faber-Castell. And here is a fountain pen. And of course there are markers. I also used a lot of fine liners. Of course I have to use water. This is a spray bottle and I used ordinary water. You will see later how. And this is a ink from Winsor & Newton, but I've used a lot of different inks, both different colors and Indian ink. And this is my Chinese ink. So this was some of the materials that I used under Inktober. So the plan was to stick to one medium for a couple of days. I decided to work in a 3-day series, but also to use different styles, or perhaps style is a wrong word, because styles is of course something you think about manga or realism or something like that, but the way to draw. So here I'm showing how I thought about it. So from the left we have this black and white kind of drawing where I use a lot of shadows, and a bit of an undercategory is where you have a little bit of lines, making the transmission a little bit softer. The other style here is the hatching, or the cross hatching style. You can also use the point. I never used that for Inktober. And then we have the ink wash, as you can see here, where you use grayscale. This is like the simplest style, I would say, very straightforward style. A bit of an undercategory for that one is to use thick and thin lines to vary a little bit the drawing. And finally, to the right, we have where you leave out a lot of lines. So styles and materials will decide how the drawing will look, but also the subject. So day 1, 2 and 3 are dedicated to a kind of drawings where I put water first and then had a dip pen and some Indian ink on top of it. And the subject were naked men. Day 4, 5 and 6 I continued to use Indian ink, but I kind of did it opposite from the earlier days. So the first one was a ink wash, and the second and third here I had Indian ink first, and then I had a spray bottle on top of it. Days 7, 8 and 9 I used fine liner, and the style were a very simple style. A little bit of variation, or at least I tried to vary it a little bit in the last drawing, where I focused on more circular or curvy lines. Day 10, 11 and 12 I used that black and white style I was talking about earlier. I struggled quite a lot for this, even though I'd done this style so many times in my life, because I felt I needed more time to get into it, I think. This is a style for me at least, that I feel are very sensitive. If you put down the blackness just a little bit wrong, it is a disaster immediately, and you can lose something really important in the drawing. So this is day 13, 14 and 15. For the first one I used a very fine liner from Micron in a sepia color, even though I would rather call it like a sanguine because it's so red. Anyway, this style I used here, where I kind of building everything up with small lines, like the hatching or the cross hatching style. You can see it here too. It reminds me a lot about old-fashioned engravings. In this drawing and the day 15 I used my technical pen. I really love drawing large, so even though I knew I only had a day, I couldn't resist, and with these small nibs it's just impossible to finish in one day, so I had to settle a little bit. Day 16, 17 and 18 I kind of played around a little bit. I kind of failed as well because I was planning to use my fountain pen, which you can see here, and I did it for my first drawing, but I completely forgot the rest of the days. The subject were of course monsters. In this first drawing I didn't do too many monsters, but I become better at it, as you can see here, the second day. Here I used an ordinary fine liner. Since I had completely failed to stick to one medium, I decided to, in my third day for this team, which was day 18, I decided to use my Chinese ink. And that was a lot of fun. One of the most interesting things about this experience were that I had believed that I would feel very uncomfortable to use only one medium for a whole month. But it turns out to be a little bit of the opposite actually, because I used this pen, this technical pen, and I used it a lot when I was younger. I just craved it so much, so I decided to use it anyway, even though I already had used it for the day 19, 20 and 21. So I only were sticking to a subject those 3 days, and the subject were of course autumn. You have to have it, I guess. The first drawing were leaves. I mean, you have to have leaves, right? The second day in this team, I really felt this is really difficult without colors, because autumn is so much about colors. So I looked out and I realized something. Trees in autumn look so much blacker than it does any other season. So what more is typical autumn? Well, unfortunately in Sweden rain is very typical, so I had to do a rain drawing. I do feel of these 3 drawings that the last one could have needed a little bit more time. It would have been better, I think, to do a little bit more rain, and the drops isn't really good. Day 22, 23 and 24 I decided to do a lot of decor kind of drawings, which is so much fun to do. I also wanted to use a style where I wanted to try out the very thick and thin lines. They are there, but I don't think I really nailed it. It's not really exactly what I had in mind. This kind of really detailed drawings are very relaxing to do. And again, I started a drawing that is too large to finish in one day. I think this drawing needs so much more work than it has, because it's just plain. I think it would be better with a lot of blackness in it. Day 24, I stuck to the thick and thin lines, but I also used 3 different inks, 3 different colors that I blended together in different proportions. Day 25, 26 and 27, I used these 2 pens from Pentel, and I think the other one is from Sakura. It's a grey and a black one, and it's a brush pen. The subject were martial art. Martial art doesn't have so much to do with October, of course, but it has a lot to do with my life, so it has to be in here. Day 28, 29 and 30, I decided to use some colors. I decided to use the 3 very common and famous, if you will, earth colors. So the first one is in ochre, the very yellowing. It looks more yellow than it actually is, I think. And the second day of this theme were the sienna, or the terra di sienna, and the last day were sepia, or burnt umber. So the ink I used were from Winsor & Newton. Since October has 31 days, I was thinking about the last day from the beginning, actually, or from the first day I decided to work in 3 days theme. So what to do with the last day, because it cannot be the same kind of themes as everyone else. And I had a lot of ideas, but I ended up with the Halloween kind of drawing. So to participate in Inktober this year was a very interesting experience for me. Now when I look back at the experience, I realized it wasn't at all as I had thought it should be. Instead, it was really difficult actually to finish a drawing, because it is a huge difference between finishing a drawing a day from actually just drawing every day. One of the problems with finishing the drawing in one day were that, at least for me, I feel that I get very blind to what I do. I need put some time between when I am actually drawing and when I do the finishing touch. I'm often very surprised of myself when I see the result the next day. So that was a challenge I felt. To only stick to one medium, which I thought should be the real challenge, I have to say it was kind of the opposite as well, because I feel like I have so much more to explore when it comes to ink.